Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're well. My name is Mark Dolfini of Strategic Boardroom. I see everyone already lighting up the comment sections. It's good to see you. You're already ahead of me. I love that. Tell me where you're from, if you'd like. Share what kind of business that you're in. I know many of you I had been emailing back and forth already, so it's really good to see you. And I want to give you a shout out to those of you who are, it's Labor Day. We shouldn't be laboring. Someone had asked me, like, you realize it's Labor Day and you're hosting this event? I was like, yeah, because let's face it, many of us are business owners. Many of us don't get time off. Many of us are enjoying the solitude and the quiet. I actually am working on a project right now. And it's my next book called Leader Boss, Time Wealthy Leader Boss, which is the next part of the Time Wealthy Advantage. I'll show you the book here in a little bit, but I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to promote anything. I really just want to teach you guys and lean into you guys and really give you some ideas about how you can grow your businesses and multiply the effect of your businesses as it is right now. So if that sounds good, say, heck yeah, I'm here to learn. And by the way, I really like audience engagement. I used to do these on Zoom, but I also was seeing a lot of people that were kind of shy on Zoom. They didn't want to show their videos or their screens or anything like that. So this removes all of that. This removes all the stress. So all you have to do is just a couple really easy things. Number one, I'm going to ask you not to multitask. I'm going to do my very best to land the plane and put the fries in the bag by 60 minutes from now. So please don't multitask because you may miss something that's really, really good. Some of you are here for some nuggets. So if TikTok is going to be there when you get to the other side. This is about your business, and it's also about training your brain not to multitask. Oh, Mark, you're killing me. Yeah, training your brain not to multitask. That is, your brain's like a muscle in that. So if you need to stand up, if you need to walk around, if you need to do something else or fidget or click your pen on and off, that's fine. But make sure you're staying focused for this hour, and then plan on doing something nice for yourself on the other side of that hour. That's going to be really important as well. All right. Other things really quick in terms of housekeeping. Yes, for some of you, I know you can't stick around, and that's why I have a replay, because you're like, hey, I'd love to do this, but I can't stick around for the whole time. I'll be sending this out. I'll be uploading it to YouTube. You'll be getting the YouTube link and you can watch it from there. So without any further delay, if you have anything specific that you'd like to accomplish from today, I know I was emailing many of you. Most of you got back to me. Some of you did not. But if there's something specific that you would like me to address today, I will stick around a little bit longer and answer some questions the best that I can. But again, I do want to make sure that I am recognizing your time. So we got people from Gainesville, oh, hey, Autumn, you're from New Jersey. It's good to see you. Chase, hello. You're in Ukraine now. All right, very good. And Sherry, starting clinical trials. Oh, wow, very good, Sherry. Daljit from Toronto, Canada. We've got people from India. Chase, very good. Okay, it is good to see. Yeah, there's all people all over the world here. So it's good to see you and welcome. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm just going to let you know this is not going to be a death by PowerPoint endeavor. So you're going to be seeing a lot of this mug. I apologize in advance, but I don't want this to be an endeavor where you're just looking at slides the entire time. I do tell a lot of stories, and I just want to let you know what I'm all about. Back in 2010, I was 37 years old. So yeah, if you're doing the math, you're like, wow, he doesn't look anywhere near 52. Go ahead and you can type that in there. I'll just go ahead, copy and paste if it makes you feel better. But all kidding aside, I was 37 years old. My business that I had built up to that point was a real estate business. And I was busy. I was doing everything that I could I was doing everything in my business, and I was doing everything in my could just to keep what I had. By the end of 2010, by the end of 2008, I had built up a $6.5 million real estate portfolio, most of that through a hodgepodge of real estate deals and wheeling and dealing and things like that. And it was extremely frustrating because I was, when I got to the other side in 2010, I looked around at this wreckage that was left of my business. Everything had fallen apart. And in 2008, when the financial crisis had hit, and I was in the thick of it, and I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, just trying to keep all the balls in the air. And at around that same point in time, not only was my business imploding, and I turned this $6.5 million portfolio into $1.5 million in about 8 months. And not only had that occurred, but I also suffered a betrayal in a relationship that absolutely just buried me. Fast forward to today in 2025. I'm an author of 8 different books. I'm working on my 9th. I'm currently in a PhD program, seeking that for that's the next thing for me, because I really want to understand the psychology of a small business owner. And I have an amazing relationship with a gal. We have 3 children, and 19, 17, and 2. And I have an amazing life. And we're going to be talking about all of those different aspects, specifically how and how I got there using the things that I'm going to be talking about today. So find that. So what we're talking about is the business growth multiplier. And this is about multiplying your business and the effect of your business and how to do that. We're taking a strategic approach to managing your life and your business. I know that's like, when I use the word strategic, you'll understand that I am very specific in my language. We're not going to get super granular today. Several of you had asked about specifics about how to grow your business, and I will get into some of that a little bit. If you are looking for more lead generation or marketing type things, that's going to be in a different masterclass. Again, for free. We'll share it with you when it comes up. But again, you can always keep an eye on Eventbrite and see when I'm posting new stuff. This is all stuff for free. I'm not here to sell you anything today. But the strategic approach to managing your life in business, when I use the word strategic, I know it sounds kind of militant, right? But there's no point in getting super granular on things until you know the big picture of what's going on. Right. As a strategist, when I was in the Marine Corps, many things what we would do, I worked in a lot of flight planning, and I was a navigator on C-130s, and we would do a lot of mission planning. And in order to do mission planning, we had to know what we had. We had to know what the capabilities of all these individual pieces of equipment could do. We needed to know if we could drop, aerial deliver this, or do aerial refueling with that, or get into certain locations with a C-130. We just had to know all that stuff, and that's what we did. So it's the same thing for you. I can't give you super granular stuff if I don't know where you're trying to go, and that'll make more sense here in a second. So who is this specifically for? When I put this class originally together, this class is specifically for established business owners with employees. If that's not you, don't run off. Don't run away. Just hang on for just a quick second, because there's still going to be value in this for you. But having a business where you have an established employee, where it's already established, you've got employees, or for example, you could be an entrepreneur that doesn't have a business yet. I know several of you have ideas for businesses. I heard from you again via email. You don't have a business yet, and you know you're going to be bringing other people on board. I'm just going to let you know that right now, this really isn't for the solopreneur or the one-man army who wants to stay that way. And it's no disrespect if that's you. I went down that road for a while, and there's a reason to do this. And if that's you, again, no disrespect, but what we're going to be talking about scaling and growing your business. And in order to do that quickly, you have to bring other people on board. There's only so many hours in the day, and there's only so many good working hours that you bring to the equation. How many of you would love to learn how to manage your time better, right? Who's all out there? I'm gonna put, if I had 3 hands, I would put 3 hands up. But I see Michelle's hand up, right? So it's about managing time, right? If you would learn how to manage time better, give that whole idea up. Give up the whole idea of managing time. It's about managing energy. It's about your energy management. And the fact of the matter is, when people come to me, and when I write a book called The Time Wealthy Advantage, my first book was called The Time Wealthy Investor, people automatically think I'm a time management expert. I'm not. I'm about energy management and managing my best energy for the day. So for those of you who are really trying to dial into making and having a better lead generation engine or better networking engine or whatever it is, I would argue that that would be the first thing that you should do, especially if you're trying to grow, because many people are trying to grow and they're trying to do all the other stuff. They're trying to do the fulfillment first, and then they're trying to do all of the business growing stuff with a very limited battery. Does that make sense? So it's really important for you to recognize your best energy of the day and work around that best energy of the day. All right. Yep. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Sherry. Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Chase. Very, very good. So this is not so much about managing your time, but managing your energy. I fought this whole idea of not being a solopreneur for years. And I was bottlenecked when I realized that I was trying to do everything myself. It's not that you can't do everything, but the reality is you can only do one thing at a time. So when you have others in your organization, you can now get multiple things done at a time. And by the way, scaling has sorry, my slides are lagging here. Bringing others into your organization has a scaling effect on the business. Later on, we're going to be talking about growing by addition versus growing by multiplication. How many of you would like to grow by multiplication? Right? And that's based on the types and quality of people that you're bringing into the organization. And how can you control that quality? Right? So it's important that you recognize as you're bringing in and controlling that quality of the type of people that you're bringing in, that is what's going to help you magnify and multiply your growth. So in 2014, I really started to grow I have a property management business, I have a real estate business, and I was really starting to grow that very quickly. There was a lot of people who were coming to me. I didn't have a problem with lead generation, but I did have a problem where I was the bottleneck with a lot of people coming in, and I couldn't manage all of the volume that I had. And in 2014, there was a lot of people who couldn't sell their properties. So as a property manager, looking at different things with people coming to me so I can manage their property so the property didn't sit vacant, that was really important. Like, that was important to them. So I had to bring other individuals into the organization. And the problem was I was not super great as a boss. I was not super great as a leader. And this is something where I had to address where certain things like that I was struggling with. Like, again, some of you, for example, you might just be starting out, right? How many of you are just starting out, right? Like, just go ahead and say, oh, it's just starting out. And again, we've all been there. We all got to start someplace. How many of you are here to scale an organization? You've already got some employees and you're trying to scale that organization. How many of you are there, right? Some of you are you're already there, you want to scale, but you really are ready to get to the next level, right? You're maybe at 3 million, like you'd love to get to 10 million. Okay. How many of you want to bring in more customers and learn how to do that, right? That's something you could be struggling with. How about let's have some honesty here. And I'm just letting you know, ask me how I know this question. How many of you would just love to have a day off once in a while? How many of you would just love to have a day off once in a while? How about this? How many of you would just love to get paid once in a while? Right? So when we're talking about magnifying growth, I'm going to give you a dose of honesty right now that some of you may not want to hear. And this is something that I had to come to reality with, or come to reconciliation with, because I did not want to believe this. Here's some truth about scaling a business. Number one, you cannot scale a broken business model. You cannot scale a broken business model. And number two is not all businesses are scalable. I hear this all the time. And right now, for whatever reason, I'm on the Facebook lead generation side where I see a lot of influencers come up, and the word that's out there is scaling. How would you like to scale? Get to the next level. All the little iterations. Right? Am I the only one who's hearing these things? I can't be. And the reality is you cannot scale a broken business model, and not every business is designed to scale. When I was climbing out of the wreckage in 2010, I had turned my $6.5 million portfolio into $1.5 million. I needed a way to make money. I was broke. Not only was I bankrupt in money, but I was bankrupt in time. So there was one thing that I have that I recognize, that I'm pretty good at fixing things. I'm actually anything electrical, anything plumbing, and anything appliance related. So I started this handyman type service. And there was a lot of people who had houses that they couldn't sell. So they ended up sticking with them, and they needed to find ways to get these houses fixed up. So what I did was I started charging. It was like, I don't even remember what it was at the beginning. It was like $50 or $60 an hour. I don't even think it was that much. I think it was more like $35 an hour to start out. And then I got so busy that I had to raise my rates because I was so busy. And as I continue to raise my rates, do you think I get less volume or more volume? What do you think? If as I raised my rates, did I get less volume or more volume? You can't scale a broken business model. Not all businesses are scalable. Yep. Thank you, Nico. So I'm actually here to tell you, I actually got more volume. As I raised my prices, I got more volume. And the volume that I got was actually people who were ready to pay. These were people who were ready to scale, ready to swipe a credit card. Now, at the time, does everybody remember Square, where you plug it into the bottom of your phone and you could just swipe it? There was no underwriting. So all you had to do was swipe a credit card reader that was attached to the bottom of your phone. That's what I was doing. And I was making upwards of $1,000 to $1,500 a day. Now, keep in mind, that might, before you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. It wasn't. I was working 12 to 15 hours a day to make that kind of revenue. But the thing was, in most of it, I was probably getting 70 to 80% flow through on that kind of volume. So, which meant I was keeping $700 to $800 a day or more, depending on how much depending on the work I was doing. But the thing was, that business, as good as it was, I was making a bunch of money, but it wasn't scalable. It wasn't scalable. And it really was a broken business model. And the fact that anybody that I brought in was my automatic competition. The more I taught them how to do my job, I was teaching my competition. Does anybody else know what I'm talking about? There's just certain businesses that are like that. Does it mean that it wasn't worth doing? No. Being able to make that kind of money and doing it for a little over a year, it gave me enough money to capitalize and put that into something else that enabled me to climb out of that hole. Keep in mind, I was $5 million in default on mortgages. $200,000 was not going to make that big of a difference, but it did give me a starting point. So that's why I want you to start to think about as we go into this scaling model here today. So here's the present. Let me get out of the way here. All right. So I'll put myself at the bottom. Here's the agenda we're going to hit today. We're going to do these somewhat quickly. We're going to talk about systems. We're going to talk about the people, right? So the systems side of the business and the psychology side of the business. We're going to talk about the 4 core functions of business. And then we're going to talk about scaling. And this is going to get a little granular. So I know some of you were asking specifics about what you're wanting to do. So a couple people drop off, and that's okay. That's totally fine. That means that I'm not what they want, and that's totally fine. I'm telling you this. I'm sharing with you right now, because that means that a couple of people are not my avatar. Remember that, because we're going to come back to this. And then number 5 is resources, just different resources that you have that I can offer you on the other side. Again, these are all free things. You don't have to pay for anything. All right, so let's talk about this business approach. When you're taking this business approach, there's the systematic side of the business and there's the social side of the business. We're talking about processes versus people. So we're going to first and foremost go into the process, or the systematic and process side of the business. These are the systems that I wrote about in the Time Wealthy Advantage. Let me just tell you this. If you are interested, don't multitask. Okay. Remember, we made a comment. I'm asking you not to multitask, but please, if you are interested in this book, don't buy it from Amazon. I'm going to send you an email here after this is done. If you really are interested in buying it, go down to my signature link at the bottom where my signature is, and you can buy it. I will sign it for you. It will be cheaper. And I will also throw in a mini coaching session. So if you are interested, but I'm not here to sell that. I just want to let you know, because I know some of you are going to run out, pay Mark or pay Jeff Bezos a lot more money, and it won't be signed, and you're not going to be getting anything else. So I'll be sending an email about that later. So just right now, stay plugged in. So I'm not here to sell this. So what we're going to be talking about is the Viper method. And the Viper method, Thank you for your honesty, Autumn. Yeah, please don't buy any of the books on Amazon. They're priced higher, and I don't have a lot of direct control over that. So anyway, I just want to let you know that if you're interested. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the Viper method: vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. This is what the Viper method is about. So this, as you're looking at the book and you're reading through the book, it unpacks each one of these elements. The thing was, and when I mentioned about having a vision for where you're trying to go. When I was climbing out of my hole back in 2010, I had realized one thing, that my entire life was being lived for my business. I had lots of friends, but they were all connected in some way, shape, or form to my business, with the exception of the people that I knew from high school. That was it. I had no personal vision at all. And when my business vision fell apart, my whole life fell apart. And this is such an important consideration that I want you to think about when you're looking at the vision piece, because the vision piece here, it has two different components: a personal vision and a business vision. The personal vision is going to ask you a question related to where it is that you want to go. Your business vision is going to say, great, how are we going to get there? And when you start thinking about your personal vision, thinking about this from like a perspective of, all right, well, if I was going to, write my 100th birthday speech or something along those lines, we'll get to that in here in a second. But here's the reality. If you're not thinking about your personal vision, the danger in creating a business vision without creating a personal vision is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. Now, I'm not going to ask anybody to indict themselves here, but I will certainly do that myself. That's exactly what I had done in 2003 all the way up through 2010, and realized that when my business fell apart, my life fell apart with it. And realistically, when I even that part of the betrayal from that relationship that I was climbing out of, when that fell apart, I mean, I was heartbroken, but realistically, I was more sick of the fact that everything in the 10 years prior that I had built in my business had completely imploded. So when you're talking about personal vision, a good way to do this is to think about your 100th birthday speech. Think about, who would you want to be in the room? And what would you say to everybody that's in the room? What would your speech be about? Looking at it another way, what would you want others to say to you when you're done speaking? They said, Autumn, that was so great. I loved the part when you said X. Robin, I loved when you said this. Chase, thanks so much for mentioning this. Rohit, thanks so much for bringing this up. Sherry, right? Like Nico, like, thank you so much, Nico, for bringing this to my forefront. These are the things that you would want them to say to you. Okay. So when they were done, what would you want them to say when they were done? And then next, and finally, what is the message you'd like them to carry outside the room when you're done speaking? Think about that in the context of a 100th birthday speech, in terms of creating and generating your personal vision. Now, there's a lot more we can go into that. That's a really, really good start. Here, what I'm going to make it, I just want to make a commitment that you're going to answer these questions. I don't care if you go super, super deep. But at least get some of these questions answered, because that's a great start for creating a personal vision. And that's exactly what I did back in 2010. I finally had to say, what in the world am I doing this all for? The reason I'm making such a point of this is because in 2009, I was working like a whipped mule. Probably would not be an exaggeration to say I was working 80 plus, maybe even 90 hours a week. And you're thinking, well, mathematically, how is that possible? Because I was only sleeping 3 to 4 hours a day. I would grab naps at the Lowe's parking lot. I would grab showers and rentals. A lot of times I would roll up my shirt and sleep on the floor of a rental, because I was so exhausted from trying to get it painted and cleaned and turned over for the next resident. It was all me. It doesn't take long for a situation like that to catch up with you. And I got a cold. So having a cold, I was like, well, I'm going to go do the right thing. I'm going to go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, and I usually don't. I usually just kind of suffer through it, but I just didn't feel right. Went to the doctor. Doctor said, take this medicine, go get some rest. So I took the medicine and I went back to work. Working again, 19, 20 hours a day. And eventually it got to the point where I couldn't breathe. The only way that I could breathe is if I put pressure against my chest by leaning over the back of a chair. Something wasn't right. And I went to the hospital. They put me in a triage room and got me set up in this triage room. The hospital was new, so they hadn't quite worked out their intake process yet. And I was laying in the hospital bed, and I started to realize that I couldn't get up. I was too weak. I was losing oxygen pretty quickly, and I didn't know what was going on. And I started to mouth for air like a fish out of water. It wasn't too much longer after that. The vision at the edges of my field of view was starting to close in on me until very slowly I could just see a tiny pinpoint of light out in the distance. And I was amazed at how calm I was. But this is the effect of what's known as hypoxic hypoxia. My lungs were filling with fluid. I didn't know it. Eventually, I closed my eyes thinking it would be the last time. I woke up with people fitting a mask over me, and they admitted me to the hospital that day with double pneumonia. And I felt better pretty quickly because of the stuff that they were giving me, steroids and so forth. And a woman who I don't know her name, she identified herself as a hospitalist. I was there overnight, and I was ready to get out of the hospital and get back to work. She came in. She had shoulder-length dark hair, a stethoscope around her neck, and a doctor's coat. And she comes in, and she asked me how I was feeling, and she told me what her role was as a hospitalist, and that she was going to be overseeing me for the next couple of days. And she could sense that I was ready to get out of there. And she put her hands in the pockets in the front of her lab coat. And she says to me, people who look like you at your age don't lay in hospital beds like this. You need to look very closely at what's going on in your life. And with that, she left. She didn't have to say that. She didn't have to say any of that. I never in my mind imagined a doctor talking to me like that, but she was right. I had to get a really hard look at how I was living my life and all the things that I was doing for what? For chasing money, for chasing wealth, and doing it all for what? I mean, I was laying in a hospital bed because I'd literally almost worked myself to death. This is what we're trying to avoid. And I'm sharing that story with you today because I don't want you to take that same path that I did. I might not be here today if it wasn't for God's grace. And the fact that I had enough sense not to go back to work right away. I eased back into it for sure, but I had to do this smart. I had to be strategic about it. So please take time to get really clear about what your personal vision is for your life. So I tell you that. So now we can get into the business vision, because it's not that business vision is irrelevant. It's just that it can't come first. So we talked about personal vision. Now let's talk about business vision. The 3 C's of business vision are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. Let's unpack those quickly. Core purpose is specifically what business that you're in. And it asks, what business are you in specifically? And what problems do you specifically solve? If you can't tell me that in less than 2 minutes, it is way too vague. If you say, well, I got to get on a call with you and talk to you for, 45 minutes to tell you what my business plan is, you're never going to get that with people. You're just not. If you can't tell someone what you do, literally in a breath or two, has anybody ever heard of an elevator pitch? This is where you have to get concise. You have to get your language very clear and not with $64 words that people don't understand. I'm talking very basic language. The people, if you know Steve Jobs from Apple and you listen to Steve Jobs, he talked about how much simplicity is actually much more difficult than being sophisticated, because being sophisticated hides it disguises imperfection. So get really clear with the most simplest language that you can, because now people will go, wow, they really know what they want. They really know what they're about. This is really important to be highly specific in your answers with your core purpose. So write down core purpose. You have to be really, really clear about your core purpose. Next is your core values. Remember that your core values, your business core values, are simply an extension of you. So let me make this quick point here. Has anybody ever had a friend that kind of wandered off the reservation that you didn't know, like, oh my gosh, like, dude, I can't follow you down this path. Like, you're heading down a dark place. I can't follow you. And it's heartbreaking, but you can't follow that individual. I've had that many times. And unfortunately, I had to cut them off. But this is why when you're coming up with the core values of your business, it's really important to think of the personal core values that you have. So you may have left a boss because that boss was a total jerk, right? You may have left a job because it was a totally toxic culture. That's great. What specifically is the opposite of that you would like to see? Maybe they were super toxic, but you want friendly, right? I've left jobs that were toxic, and my last job I got fired from. Oh, well, they didn't want me. They voted me off the island. Guess what? I did not want to be there anyway. They did me a massive favor. And I'm not just saying that after the fact. I'm saying, like, no, I didn't belong there because their culture was so toxic and I just didn't fit in. That's okay. So let's look at this. And when it comes to core values, what matters to you about this business, number one? And number two, how would the world be worse off if you were no longer in business? That's really important to think about. So what matters to you about this business, and how would the world be worse off if you went out of business? The next C, we talked about core purpose, core values. Now we're going to be talking about client avatar. For those of you who want granularity, this is really, really important. If you've already got everything else dialed in, you've got all the people and the team members in place, you have got to make sure that you are very clear. If you're clear on your core purpose, excellent. If you're clear on your core values, perfect. Now your culture is in place. This client avatar piece is very, very important. Who specifically and ideally do you want to serve? And think about it in this way. What are their geographics? What are their demographics? And what are their psychographics? This is pretty straightforward. From geographics, you might think where they are. Your demographics is who they are. And the psychographics is how psycho they are. Right? No, I'm just kidding. So it's the geographics where they are, demographics who they are, and the psychographics is how they think. How they think. So when you're starting to think about psychographics, I want you to think of the acronym ALIA, ALIA, ALIA. That is your attitudes, not your attitudes. I'm sorry. That is their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and their aspirations or goals. Okay. So attitudes, lifestyles, interests, and aspirations. That's really important when you're trying to think of who it is you're trying to attract, because now you can use their language. If you're trying to attract a Gen Alpha and you're using Gen Z language, that ain't going to land. That's not going to matter. Like they're going to feel like you're disconnected. And that's why I'm saying it's really important for you to understand their attitudes, their lifestyles, their interests, and aspirations. That way you can reach them in your marketing. We're going to talk about that when we come back up with the 15 reasons why people buy. So these are the 3 C's of business vision: core purpose, core values, and client avatar. That's your business vision. So let's put the fries in the bag, and we're going to be done with vision. So here's the thing. If you have ever thought, oh my gosh, I've got all these ideas, but I have no idea when I'm going to implement them, this is when you come up with a business vision timeline. I'm going to do this quickly because I don't have a lot of time remaining here, but this is where you come up with a 36-month timeline. A 36-month timeline and a 12-month timeline, these are really important to come up with. And I know these people tell you to you got to come up with a 10 and 15-year timeline. Oh my gosh, man, there are so many variables. There's so many variables at 5 years, let alone 15 years. And how much has technology changed in the last 5 years? How much has technology changed in the last 5 years? And you think you're going to come up with a 15-year timeline? Come on. That's ridiculous. I'm not suggesting that you can't have a longer term timeline, but 36 months is kind of the outside edge of planning. It really is out in the outside of edge of planning. And the way that I do that is think of RPM. I think of revenues, profits, and metrics. Revenues, profits, and metrics for both 36-month and 12-month timelines. Revenues, the money that you bring in. Profits, the money that you keep. Your metrics would be the measurable. So if it's number of houses sold or number of clients, number of high-end clients, right? Whatever. So whatever that metric is, That's important for you to consider. Most people, I'm just letting you know this, most people vastly overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year. They vastly overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year, and they vastly underestimate what they can accomplish in 3. So, what does that mean? I want your goals, I want your targets to be a stretch for 3 years. Because what's going to happen? You're always going to be looking at year 3, right? Year 3 is going to move as you move. But but realistically, you're moving towards that target. You're moving towards those goals because you are going to be learning, because the goal allows for what? The goal allows for growth. The goal allows for growth that goes on in here. It goes on in here. You start remembering, oh my gosh, you know what? Yeah, maybe I didn't hit my goal, but man, I learned a lot. Now I can actually go to the next level because I'm ready for it, because of everything that I learned along the way. That's the beauty of having goals, is that, yes, goals are really important, but it's the growth along the way that I want you to be paying attention to. Does it make sense? Can I get a heck yeah? Or is anybody still out there? Is my mic still working? Just let me know. Like, again, do you feel like this is true? All right. So business vision timelines, again, from the 36-month and 12-month, that all makes sense. Okay, great. Thank you, Inda. Okay. From the 12-month business vision timeline, you're going to break it down into 90-day projects, which is aligned with your 1-year vision. You're going to come up with weekly goals, monthly goals, and a daily 5. The daily 5 we're going to talk about here when we talk about execution. So the daily 5 are the 5 most important things that will move the needle towards your goals, towards your monthly goals, your weekly goals, your monthly goals, your 90-day projects, your 1-year business vision, and your 3-year business vision. That is how you come up with timelines. And the only place where the actions and activities are in your daily 5. So we talked about vision. Let's put the fries in the bag and land the plane on vision. Now we're going to talk about infrastructure for just a hot second. Infrastructure is the bones of the business. It's the desks, the chairs, the software, phone systems, websites, all of the different things that you have to consider in the infrastructure of your business. The reason that vision comes first is because, again, let's say for argument's sake that you want to lay on the beach in Spain for 2 months out of the year. If you create an infrastructure that requires you to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, and you want to lay on the beach in Spain, that's going to be a horrible experience for you when you're trying to lay on the beach in Spain drinking sangria. Does it make sense? So this is why vision has to come first. Personal vision, then business vision. And then when you're building the infrastructure out, you're building it with a mind of what you're trying to create in the future. And you build it like a Sudoku puzzle. You don't try to set up all the infrastructure that you ever might need ever. No, you build it like a Sudoku puzzle or a crossword puzzle. You figure out what you need to figure out during that period of time. And here's the main litmus test. If any information has to come through me, that's how I know I need infrastructure or process. Process we're going to hit here in a second. But infrastructure means that something's up that I need to build out because I'm having to do this. Okay? Now remember, if you have an unscalable business model where everything is requiring you to go out and fix the thing, okay, that's why I'm saying not every business is scalable and not every business should be scaled, or you can't scale a broken business model. You just can't. So this is why when you're looking at vision and you're looking at infrastructure, you have to think about what pieces of infrastructure that you can put in place that will allow you to operate more consistently, more effectively, and much more efficiently. Let's get back to the Viper method. So why does vision come first? Again, the reason vision comes first is so you can build an infrastructure that's in alignment with that vision. Let's look at now. So we talked about vision, we talked about infrastructure. Now let's talk about process. Process is simply how you do stuff. That's all it is. And process has 2 components, the tactical component and the strategic component. Let's look at process from a tactical perspective first. From a tactical perspective, you're looking at how you do stuff. You're looking at your standard operating procedures. You're looking at your things like checklists. These are the things that you do from day to day. It's your opening procedures, your closing procedures, how you prepare bank deposits, how you answer the phone, things like that. Those are really important practical, tactical process things. Now, for those of you who are my systems people, where are my systems people? Say, yes, systems guy, here I am. I'm all about systems. Where are my systems people? Go ahead and self-identify. I know you're here. I know you're here. So go ahead and say, yes, I'm definitely into systems. Here's what I'm going to tell you. What I just shared with you, again, from the day-to-day activity stuff, all of that stuff, this box right here that I just put the box around in infrastructure and tactical process. Thank you, Mike. This is the systems piece of the Viper method, is the infrastructure and the tactical part of process. But I'm just letting you know that systems are great, but systems are not enough. And you're going to hear me come back to that here in a minute. We talked about tactical. Now we're going to talk about strategic planning. This is the outside of the system. Because now just think about it. We just built this warship. We just built this battleship. Now we want to take it out of the harbor and go make some trouble. So when you're thinking about this, you need 3 P's. That is your people, your purpose, and your promotion. People, purpose, promotion. When you're thinking about this side of thing, and I don't have a lot of time to unpack this, but the people, purpose, and promotion, the people side of your business is really important to consider in terms of who you're going to need, because you're not going to be able to do it all. So you might need to bring in a marketing person, a salesperson, someone to do fulfillment for you, right? Someone to answer the phone, someone to do billing, right? What you're going to hear me say near the end is when in the 4 core functions of business, the accounting function, which is the 4th of the 4 functions, most people ignore that function. And I have an accounting degree, and I would often ignore that function. So I'm just letting you know that is something you cannot ignore. When it comes to the purpose, your strategic purpose needs to align with your core purpose. You cannot have a core purpose and a strategic purpose that don't align. The reason for that is because it will confuse your internal people. It will confuse your customers. Because it would be like Starbucks if they started selling chainsaws, right? You're like, well, could they sell chainsaws? Sure. Does it align with their core purpose? Not at all. Not even remotely. You're like, that's so confusing. I don't even understand what that's about. So that's why your strategic purpose has to be really, really dialed in. And it has to be in alignment with your core purpose. The promotion piece is just letting the world know that's out there. And that's a communication piece. I talked about this a little bit ago about the core purpose, the communication piece. If you can't say it concisely and you can't say it in $2 words or really simple words, not like $64 words, but you can't say it with basic vocabulary, you're leaving people behind. And that is why, as a leader boss, as a leader of your organization that you're trying to grow, you have to recognize how important it is to promote it internally to your people with a shared vision. A shared vision. Who wants to work for a boss? Who wants to work harder for someone so you can put a boat in someone else's driveway? Anybody? I know I wouldn't. Do you think your employees are going to want to work much harder so they can put a pool in your backyard? Like, oh, wow, I'm going to work a few extra hours so I can put a pool in his backyard or send his kids to a really nice school. Anybody? No, it doesn't work that way. The reason why that matters is because the promotion piece has to dial in to a shared vision. And this is the component of leadership that most leaders just don't get. They're like, well, I pay them. Shouldn't that be enough? No, it isn't. And it shouldn't be. I'm just telling you. That's why I had, with my management company, I have people that absolutely were in tears to take a job where they were being offered almost twice as much pay, but they didn't want to leave because they didn't want to leave the culture. And they left, they made a lot more money, and they hated it. And it's not that I wished I could have kept them, but the job that they were at didn't command a higher price. It was time for them to move on. And as much as I hated it, they would come to me and say, I don't know what to do. And I'd say, look, if you don't take this job, I'm going to fire you because it's a really good opportunity. And you wouldn't have brought it to me if you didn't want my advice. And they all took the jobs. They all were very happy. And, they recognized what they were giving up, but they always kept in touch with me. Wouldn't you love to have that kind of an impact on people? That is what having a purpose-driven, core values-driven business is like. And it really impacts people. So this is really what I'm talking about. The heart of promotion is really bringing your people into a shared vision for your organization. So we talked about process, tactical process, strategic process. Now let's talk about execution. Execution. I love this quote by General Patton. A good plan violently executed now is way better than the perfect plan executed next week. Most plans, when they fall apart, where do they fall apart? That's right. They fall apart in their execution. And having too many priorities has the same impact as having no priorities. So I want you to think about that. When you have, who has the list out there? I know you're out there, right? You do have that impact on people. I love that, Robin. I love that you're owning that. That's great. Very good. Who has the list of 97 to do things that, like, oh, I've got my list of 97 items I'm going to do today, right? I'd have 3 hands up if I had 3, right? I was that guy. But the reality is when you have too many priorities, it has the same effect as having no priorities. This is why when I was talking earlier about your daily 5, your daily 5 is up to 5, not has to be 5, but they are the 5. Sorry, let me get my slide. There we go. Up to 5 highly specific actions that you can take to move the needle towards your vision. Now, again, that could be personal vision or business vision, but if we're talking about a business context, then you want up to 5. For me, 3 is the sweet spot. 3 is the sweet spot. Today, this was one of my daily 3. Making sure that I was prepared for this. And I reviewed my slides. I was emailing a lot of you today, just catching up, saying, hey, thanks for sending me, thanks for connecting. Is there anything specific you're wanting out of it today? All right. And this is something I just want to make sure that you understand. And this is why it's also important to have an accountability partner, whether that's a coach, whether that's, a business partner that's probably not your spouse. I know I get a lot of flack for saying that, but a lot of times people who are not your spouse, because what happens on date night? It becomes a board meeting. All right. Ask me how I know. So Viper method. We talked about vision, infrastructure, process, execution. You're specifically executing on things. Now we're going to talk about reporting. Reporting, when we get into this, we talk about lead metrics and we talk about lag metrics. Lead metrics are based on the actions and activities that you perform. The lag metrics are based on the results of those actions and activities you perform. So if you're not getting the results you want, all you have to do is look at your actions and activities. It's pretty straightforward. So this is where you can tie these things into an execution score. And this is why when you're looking at reporting, you have to have certain functions that you're measuring. If you're not measuring this stuff, you cannot possibly manage your activities. And especially true if you have a team, because you'll have no clue what they're doing. All right, moving on. So we talked about the systems. Now let's talk about the people. The systems are important. They are absolutely important, but the systems are only going to bring you so far. Systems, they bring stability, they bring consistency, they bring accountability. And that's great, but they're limited because they can't make subjective decisions. And it's really hard for systems to adapt to market changes. By design, they're meant to be stable. So, and it's really also hard for them to come up with creative solutions, and they do not help really establish human connections. They're great. Like email autoresponders are great, but they don't, like many of you, I was able to learn more specifics about you today because I was emailing you specifically directly. It wasn't an AI bot. It was me typing it out. So if I typed and put a typo in there, that's me. That's because I was typing it. So we talked about the systematic side of things. Now we're going to talk about the social and people aspect of the business. These are the 3 pillars model of leadership that I come up with. These are trust, vision, and communication. Every aspect of leadership that I have looked at and studied, it falls into these 3 buckets, these 3 pillars. Why is leadership so important? Well, as I'm writing right now, my next book called Leader Boss, I've noticed that there's a problem between title and people with authority. And a boss is someone who is really in charge by virtue of their title or position and nothing more. And it's interesting because John Maxwell talks about this in, a positional leader, and they're only there because, they are the boss. They've been put in that position, right? So you're struggling between okay, here's my title, but do I really have the authority? So does leadership really matter that much? Well, here's the reality. When I'm looking at a leader boss, the struggle between caring and candor. And the struggle between caring and candor is this. When you care too much, tell me if anybody can relate to this being true, especially if you've been a boss before or a manager or in charge of other people. When you care too much, but you don't have enough candor, people walk all over you. People walk all over you. If you have too much candor, but not enough caring, people treat you like a tyrant. People treat you like a tyrant. So has anybody ever experienced those things? I was absolutely on the more caring side of this. I didn't really want to hold people accountable. And that was, people would just walk all over me. And that was really, really a struggle. So the level 5 leader companies, and this is something that was written about in Good to Great by Jim Collins. He also wrote a book called Great by Choice. Absolutely phenomenal books, very, very well researched, all based in research. But companies that had level 5 leaders, these were people that, or I'm sorry, I keep saying people. These were companies that were led by people with very, very strong leadership traits. Very strong leadership traits. And very strong leadership traits, meaning that they always led with value. They always focused on their people first. They never, anything that went wrong, they took ownership of it. Right? And the world is dying for some authentic leadership now. They're just dying for it. And I will tell you this, level 5 leader companies, and this is why it's so important to level up your leadership, is they're significantly more profitable. They grew much, much faster, right? We're here to multiply our growth, right? They grew much faster. They had a much stronger company culture, and they had a very defined set of core values. This was all because of level 5 leaders that were running these companies. And these are companies that you may know, right? These are companies like Amgen, Intel, Microsoft, and Southwest Airlines. When they compared it against companies like Genentech, AMD, Apple, and Pacific Southwest. Now, Apple today is not the Apple in the comparison, right? Microsoft was crushing Apple until they finally brought Steve Jobs back and he made a turnaround for the company. But Apple was not doing so well when Jim Collins wrote this book. The interesting thing here is I'm just going to make this quick point in terms of how important this is, that Amgen, these were the companies that literally, they grew 20, look at Amgen in terms of the overall market. Now I'm talking about the overall stock market. Amgen grew 24 times larger, or grew 24 times faster than the market, and 77 times its industry. Jump down to Southwest Airlines. It grew 63 times market. That means like $1,000 would be worth $63,000. Right? If you invested in Southwest compared to the market versus and the industry of 550 times more than the rest of the other airlines in that industry. So it really does make a big difference. And for those you might be wondering, well, what companies are these? They're almost always in the 100 best places to work, where they have the highest stock returns. So leadership makes a massive difference. And because the reason for that is because growth requires change, and leadership is what manages that change. So again, we talked about the systems side of the equation. Now we're talking about the people and the psychology side of things. And I hear this all the time. How do I get people to care as much as I do? I feel like I should be much further along in my business. The reality is that growth requires change. Leadership manages that change. And if you're struggling with those sorts of questions, I'm letting you know that it's probably because of your own leadership. And this is why I'm telling you this now. If you are on the beginning side of your entrepreneurial journey, do not skimp on the systems. Don't skip on the systems side, but the systems are only going to get you so far. It's this business psychology side, the leadership side, that's really going to make a difference for you. That's what's going to help you grow massively faster. So when we talked about this, we talked about the systems side and the people side. Okay. I just want to make this one quick point in case I don't make this point later, is that if you are looking to grow your organization and you're trying to grow faster, that's why you want to bring in other leaders into your organization. Why? Why do you want to bring in other leaders into your organization? Because when you're bringing in leaders into your organization, or you're developing leaders in your organization, now you're not only getting the leader, but you're getting all those people that leader has. You're getting all of those people that leader has impacted. Does that make sense? So you don't just get them, you get them and their tribe. That's how you grow a business faster, much faster. And you bring in really good people that are in alignment with your core values. So again, we're taking this strategic approach to growing your business. All right, let's get to the next piece here, which is the 4 core functions that every business has to have. The 4 core functions are lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And the customer's journey through your business happens in this order. Okay. So when you're looking at this, your company, the people are coming to your business because of your lead generation. And trust and know that your lead generation never, ever, ever, ever stops with that individual. Because if it does, then you're always going to be chasing the next new client. If people have bought from you and you're like, well, yeah, but I only sell like a one-time thing. I know we have someone in here who does alterations. And you might think, well, I'm only going to do one wedding dress. Really? One? What about if you treat that person well and then you keep in contact with that person over and over and over? Do you think that when their friends get married and their friends' friends get married, that you're not going to have a flood of business? And if you start getting so busy, don't you think you should be raising your prices? To me, that makes a lot of sense. So this is how you start thinking about lead generation. So once you have lead generation and that conversation, now you can start thinking, okay, all right, now I'm set to scale. So now as I'm walking through my lead generation, now I'm starting to target my client avatar. And I want to know exactly who it is that I want to work with. And because I know my client avatar, I know it's much easier for me to direct my marketing to them. So these are the people these are the people with the most amount of money and bring me the least amount of drama. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, how do I get 5 more of those people? How do I get 5 more of those? Or 10 more of those. That's how you start to, when your avatar is that dialed in, that's how you do this. And this is where you start to consider the 15 reasons why people buy. I'm just going to go ahead and put this up on the screen so you can take a screenshot of this, but you need to be thinking about all the different reasons why people will buy from you. How do you help them make money, save time, avoid effort, escape pain, all sorts of pain too, emotional pain, physical pain, spiritual pain, all the pains. How do you deliver them more comfort, which is, by the way, can be less stress or better health? Okay. How do you get them to feel more love, especially in their own tribe? How do you get them to gain praise? Can you make them the hero, gain praise, increase their status from where they're at? How do you get them to buy? Many people will buy for truth, especially if they have felt lied to in the past. People will buy for truth. They will buy for growth. They will buy for novelty, right? Who has to have the latest iPhone? What are we up to? Like 71 now? I have no idea. I have a normal phone, not an iPhone. Sorry. But people will buy for novelty. They'll buy for more control, and they will buy to be in contribution to others. Okay. So when you're thinking about lead generation, everything needs to support your lead generation function. Here's the reality. And some of you have already emailed me this. I've got like the best service. Look, the reality is you can have the best service, the lowest price, and the absolute most amazing product. And you can have the most efficient business, the best business, the paragon of virtue. Your sales technique is so amazing. You could sell ice to Eskimos and voting booths to Castro and still starve. That's the reality. You can never afford to take your foot off the gas when it comes to lead generation. And we'll have to leave it there. I could get much more granular. That's a topic for the lead generation class. We're just going to go a few minutes over, so I'm almost done here. But when it comes to sales continues the conversation started by the lead generation function. And it understands effective selling is really about finding solutions. It's really about finding solutions and matching up why they're coming to you, and you're tracking that, how they're coming to you, and you're continuing on those sales conversations long after the sale. So you don't have to keep hunting all the time for new customers. The operations function, generally, if you're going to get stuck, you get stuck in the operations, right? You get stuck doing alterations. You get stuck in the roofing business. You get stuck doing all the bookkeeping. You get stuck doing all the accounting, right? If that's your business, right? And that's generally where people get stuck. In the accounting, here's what generally happens. If you're going to ignore something, generally you're going to ignore the accounting function. Let me ask you something. Are all of these things, lead generation, sales, operations, accounting, are they all the same skill set? Are they all the same set of skills? Oh, of course not. Would you want your accounting person to do sales? I hope not, because they could do anything. But the reality is you want the right people on the right seats on the bus, to quote Jim Collins. All right. So this is why, again, you want all these people that are in alignment with your core values. And again, this is the addition versus multiplication piece, where you're bringing people in, where you're not just hiring a person. You might be hiring a virtual assistant. great. But if you have a bookkeeping service or an accounting service, I know some of you had talked about that. If you have a bookkeeping or accounting service, what else can you bring into the table, or other people that you could bring in to offer your clients something more than just simple bookkeeping, right? That's helping them grow by multiplication rather than just hiring a virtual assistant or hiring someone to just do the books, right? Now you're helping them grow by multiplication, not just by addition. So this is the thing. So as we're talking about being set to scale, here are some resources that I just want to throw out there. This is a Facebook group. Lauren, if you can go ahead and put that in there. That is a Facebook group. It's a Time Wealthy Advantage group. You can join that for free. There's nothing else. Again, we just do more trainings and stuff like this. Except don't come if you're a jerk. If you're a jerk, don't come. I don't like dealing with jerks. So, but this is all I have. I am more than happy to stick around if you guys have some questions. Thank you, Michelle. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to stick around for a little bit. But the reality is, here's the thing. You have to have people. You have to have, thank you, Autumn. You have to have folks that are in alignment with your core values. And it's not just a systems approach. It's not just a leadership approach. It's a holistic approach. It's a strategic approach. So I know I've given you guys a lot to think about. If you have not really dialed in your personal vision, I really want you to start there. But I don't want you creating a vision that exists to, that exists where your personal vision exists to serve the business. I want your business vision to exist to serve you. So if you haven't done that yet, please take the time to do that. If you haven't done your core purpose, core values, client avatar, and getting really clear on those things, it's massively more easier to scale when you have those things dialed in. When, again, take the Viper method and go through those questions and really walk and unpack those different things. And then when you get to the end, now you can be strategic in terms of how you want to spend your time. Because many of you were like, oh man, I really want to get granular on how to generate more leads. Okay, great. But you have to fish where the fish are. And if you don't even know what kind of fish you're trying to catch, I promise you, you'll catch all sorts of different kinds of fish. But wouldn't it make sense if you're trying to catch tuna to use the bait that tuna are more likely to go after? Doesn't that make sense? That's why we're taking a strategic approach. So I'm going to land the plane. I believe I need to work on the lead generation aspect. Okay. And Aziz, that's true for most people. That is true for most people. So if you are interested in growing your business, yes, I'm telling you right now that 70 to 80% of your activity needs to be around lead generation. 70 to 80% of your activity needs to be around lead generation. And you're like, how in the world am I going to do that? And I'm talking about, well, I post every day on YouTube. Okay, great. How do you do 5 times more of that? And keep in mind, posting is not marketing. Those are two different things. Posting is not marketing. All that is doing is making your brand awareness. Keep in mind, is this a lead generation function for me? Yeah, it is. Because I get to demonstrate my competence. I get to demonstrate what it is that I do. And maybe none of you on this will be buyers, and that's okay. I'm not doing it. Most of my money comes in through real estate now because I figured that out. But I love what I do here. And this gives me a mechanism to try different stuff out. And many, some people jumped off and it looks like they jumped back up. I actually wound up with more people at the end of this than the beginning, which is kind of funny, but that's fine. But it allows me to test these certain things, test different aspects of the market. What is resonating with you guys? Because if it's not interesting to you guys, if it's not relevant to you guys, you're all going to bounce. And I've had sessions where I just did one, where there's one person on there and I'm not even sure who that one person was. All right. So I'm going to hop off here. Thank you so very much. I will be in contact with you on email. And again, if there's anything that I can ever do, please don't hesitate to ask. You guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time.